Hey everybody, today I am going to be reviewing Asteroid City. This was directed by Wes Anderson. Admittedly, it's been a minute since I've seen a Wes Anderson film. I actually did miss out on French Dispatch a couple years ago, so I guess that makes Isle of Dogs the last film that I saw of his. A film I enjoyed, but it wasn't one of my favorites. But when I saw the trailer for this one, I was very intrigued by it, mainly because, yes, it is still very much the Wes Anderson brand. It's a very auteur vision. It's kind of buzzing with all the humor and the quirks and that kind of melancholy undercurrent. But I got the sense, and I definitely felt it while I was watching the movie, there was something a little bit kind of hard about it to put your finger on, at least for a while you're starting to kind of navigate your way through the experience. And I do think it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I think some are going to love it, some are going to just fall right into the experience and love all of the details of the world and all of that. And I think there are other people that maybe might find it a little bit convoluted or a little bit confusing and maybe even a little bit empty. But again, I really think it depends on your preference. Personally, for me, I really enjoyed the film, but I think I enjoyed it more for kind of the way the experience starts to shape up as the movie goes. So like I found it kind of layers in all of the different elements, whether it's kind of like the dread or the melancholy, as I mentioned before, the paranoia that just kind of exists in the world and so on, in a way where, again, you're kind of absorbing it slowly. It's kind of like soaking into you rather than it being more kind of a straightforward narrative experience like maybe you might be used to. And this film is decidedly more meta, I think, compared to other Wes Anderson films as well. And it is a play within a play sort of narrative device that we are employing here, and we are seeing things from the writer's perspective, the actor's perspective, etc. And I've said this before, I do think that the meta emphasis in a lot of our art house films to be kind of laid on a little bit too thick nowadays, but I don't know, I was kind of digging aspects of this one. And the pieces of this story are kind of laid out very sporadically. You know, things are happening here, things are happening there, things are happening really everywhere, and you have all these different anecdotes that are weaving in and out. And the play here is written about a desert town in the 1950s, and it is called Asteroid City. And there's like a big stargazer space cadet sort of convention that is going on, a big celebration, and things start to slowly kind of string together, and it builds kind of outwardly and then goes inward. So when you step back, I think it's a very interesting looking type of mosaic, and I found that to be refreshing. I found it to be maybe more self-reflective for Wes Anderson maybe than I'm used to, and I don't think it necessarily materializes in the ways that I wanted it to always. I actually think it could have gone further. I think it could have been more bold and more ambitious, and I think they could have delved into the ideas a little bit more, and yet it's still, you know, very titillating in the right places. It being the 1950s in this play and kind of using the framework of the science fiction narrative is, I think, really great, and it makes all the sense in the world because, again, it's the 1950s. That's a period in America of major external threat, fear of the atomic bomb, fear of nuclear annihilation, and extraterrestrial invasion, government oppression, and you can feel all of that. It's very like Katu Barada Nikto type stuff. And knowing Wes Anderson, of course, in the writing, just in terms of the characters and especially the way that it looks, just every meticulous detail is so on point, and it goes so far above and beyond compared to most movies that you see, most directors that you see. The film is such a feast for the eyes. Most of his films are, but this one in particular I really, really loved. It felt to me like a giant quilt where everything is hand-stitched. Just the colors and the patterns, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot to absorb, I think, just visually. And at first, especially in the first half of the movie, I was kind of hesitant or a little unsure of how things are going to work in terms of the conclusion, just because, you know, again, the play within the play is kind of a difficult thing to pull off. And I was worried a little bit about how it would flow properly into the actual play that we see on screen. But I found myself kind of working into it, and little by little, it really started to make sense as it went. And I love the way this movie feels almost like a short story or something that was written maybe like a creative writing class that got submitted to the New Yorker and then it, you know, got published or something. It feels like something written by someone who they're recalling their childhood when they were on a road trip in the 1950s. And of course, some major creative liberties are going to be taken with the story, but I think the main idea is just that feeling of warmth, that feeling of nostalgia, even though I don't consider this movie to be necessarily sentimental. I don't find the same like warm personal feelings that I felt from a movie like Moonrise Kingdom. And yet the fingerprints of that film are very much here. The fingerprints of a lot of his previous works I do feel in this one. They're just working their way in maybe a different way. And of course the addition of this alien invasion, which is of course a very important aspect of the story, you know, one can find the humor in that as well as the tragedy and of course the existential dread of it all. But so many of the interactions here between all the different characters, it all hinges on this big event. It's the imminent dread of that existential threat and just the idea of the unknown that is like, it's kind of a burden on these people, and that aspect of things really binds them together in an unlikely way. The performances here, as they are in pretty much every Wes Anderson film, they are absolutely fantastic, and there are a million different actors, recognizable actors in this movie. It is a typical celebrity kind of Rolodex that he seems to have on standby. Lucky guy. But of all the performances, and again, I loved them all, I think the one, and maybe just in terms of the actual characters themselves, I think the one that resonated with me the most is actually kind of the connection between the Scarlett Johansson character and the Jason Schwartzman character, and I think also the addition of their son and their daughter kind of getting into their own romance as well. Scarlett Johansson, though, as an actress, she's somebody that I have criticized a lot on this channel, absolutely, because I really struggled with her for a long, long, long time. I felt like a lot of the roles that she was given, especially when she was maybe in her early 20s and even before that, I felt like she was maybe not old enough, maybe not wise enough to grasp them. And I've always felt she was a little bit too self-aware as an actress, but I gotta tell you, she is aging like fine wine. I think that the older she gets, the more that she starts to really think about her performances more, and they're a lot more nuanced. And here she's really wonderful. I kind of love that kind of pulled back, kind of stilted delivery of the dialogue. It somehow, I don't know, it felt very natural in a weird way. And there's a major sadness to her, but the way that she uses it in very silly kind of performative ways, she is able to kind of bring out the comedy and the tragedy of it both at the same time in a way that I really enjoyed. And of course, Jason Schwartzman, I just love him. I've always loved him. Just that deadpan, I think, is really brilliant. I of course saw him recently in Across the Spider-Verse. He's voicing, the villain, the Spot, and he was fantastic in that, and of course fantastic in this. And as usual, it's not just the actors he chooses, but it's just the makeup and the costumes and everything. Everything, again, is just so detailed, so meticulous. And the faces here are so 1950s. They feel so artificial in that way, in that very kind of Americana sort of way, with the greased hair and the bouffants and the makeup and the clothes and everything. And again, the deadpan humor is always very, very prevalent in this, not just from Schwartzman, but from, all of the different actors. It's that sort of Buster Keaton-esque style of performing. And of course, just visually, cinematically, it's the flattened spaces that he is so known for. It's like almost like silent era type of compositions, and you can find the humor that stems from that. I think it's one of his best strengths. And the composition, I think part of what I love about kind of the flattened space is it allows you to kind of work through everything yourself. It has almost like a Where's Waldo type of feel to it, which again, I really like. I like the deep focus and all of that. There are a lot of ideas, though, kind of swimming around in this movie, and they start to, again, materialize more in the third act, where we're tapping into ideas about how art informs life and how life informs art. And we're seeing those things kind of mirrored, both backstage, and then we're seeing it kind of come through in the actual play. And it does get kind of fun, and there is sort of a mockery sort of feeling where we're mocking performance, I think, but we're also honoring performance and creativity. And I do kind of wish that maybe everything went a little bit further, especially in the second half of the movie. I wish it kind of sunk its teeth more into those themes that it's exploring and have them reflect externally a little bit more. I think that the movie could have been longer in order for that to happen, but it is the episodic nature of everything and how it starts to kind of become this beautiful kind of tapestry that you can sit back and look at is really what felt very satisfying to me. But I do really applaud the effort here, absolutely. I don't think this is my favorite Wes Anderson film by any stretch, but I would happily return to it. There's so much to absorb, especially on our first viewing, that I'd like to go back for a second one and see all of the different things that I missed. And especially once you have a sense of where things are going to start to go, especially in the second half of the film, it makes you kind of want to go back and watch the whole thing, now having kind of a conclusive perspective. And again, I don't think everybody's going to absolutely fall in love with this one. It's not like Isle of Dogs, which felt a lot more accessible, I think, compared to this one. Like I said, it's a different type of narrative experience, and it doesn't take shape in the ways that everybody might really love. And I do hear those criticisms of like where the visuals can sometimes stifle kind of the emotion of what Wes Anderson is going for. And I can get those criticisms. I've certainly criticized him for that in the past. But again, I think that the visual experience here is working towards something deeper in a way that did appeal to me, in a way that was, again, refreshing. Just working in more subtle ways than I think you're used to. So for me personally, I would totally recommend it. If you are a fan of Wes Anderson, of course I'm going to recommend it to you, even if you don't think it's like his best film or something like that. Again, it's very much his brand, and is doing all the things he normally does brilliantly, as always. But that is my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website, as always. It is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commission portraits, and I also sell prints of my work. If that is something that you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. If you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons who are great. Guys, thank you so much for your support. Welcome to all the new members. And if you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.